Hello everyone, it's time for us to go and compare the iPhone 14 Pro Max and the iPhone 7 Plus and see which specific phone is the better one for you. Now obviously I think going up to this 14 Pro Max is a much better deal. Links will be down in the description if you want to pick up either one of these phones or some other phones I'd recommend. You can get them from there, you can help support the channel at the same time. Now, side by side, you can definitely tell that the iPhone 14 Pro Max is a little bit of a bigger phone, but it's not like a massively bigger phone. They were both very large phones when they first came out. The iPhone 7 Plus was the most expensive iPhone Apple made at that time back in 2016 when this phone first came out. It had a 5.5-inch IPS panel on the front, and it really wasn't that bad of a design phone at the time. This was the last year before they made the gesture-based design on the iPhone 10, so it's pretty crazy to see how decent this phone is kind of aged up. This phone just recently got unsupported with software on iOS 15, which is kind of sad, but you still have thick bezels on the bottom and the top. You still have Touch ID right here, and overall the design isn't old, but it's definitely not as good looking as something like the iPhone 14 Pro Max that just came out. This thing, in kind of the same footprint, has a 6.7-inch Super Retina XDR OLED panel. So this is a much bigger panel than you're getting on the iPhone 7 Plus. You're also getting a way less amount of bezel all around it. You're also getting the dynamic island now. So before it was just like the bezel. Now you're getting the dynamic island, which I think is cool. I mean, I think that the notch may have been the same thing as this thing, but whatever, it doesn't really matter. So I'll definitely say the iPhone 14 Pro Max with its ProMotion display, way better panel, better front-facing camera, everything like that, looks way better than the iPhone 7 Plus. Now, weirdly enough, you are getting a much thinner phone on the iPhone 7 Plus, as you guys can probably tell, which I think is really cool. But with the thickness on the 14 Pro Max, you are getting a way thicker battery, so that is a really big thing as well. So you guys can kind of see, the build quality is still decent on the 7 Plus, but it's going to be much, much better on the iPhone 14 Pro Max with its aluminum side. And on the bottom, we have lightning ports on both. We actually do not have a SIM card tray on the iPhone 14 Pro Max, but we did have one on the iPhone 7 Plus. So that might be one big thing to kind of keep in mind. Now on the back, we have glass back on the iPhone 14 Pro Max, but it is a frosted glass back, which looks and feels very premium. On the iPhone 7 Plus, we had this aluminum back, which still feels very good. The good thing about the aluminum backs is you're not really going to crack this back. You can still crack it if you drop it hard enough, but it still, feels fairly premium. And honestly, if Apple ever brought this back, I think some people may actually end up liking it more, to be honest. But personally, I like the frosted glass back. It makes the phone feel that much more premium. And just look at the size of those camera sensors. The camera sensor is massive on the iPhone 14 Pro Max. On top of that, you're getting wireless charging. IP certification on both, but you're getting wireless charging on the iPhone 14 Pro Max. You're getting MagSafe capability here. You're getting emergency SOS satellite mode. You're getting crash detection. And you're getting 5G on the iPhone 14 Pro Max. Well, you're not really getting those things on the iPhone 7 Plus. So when it comes down to the outside of both these phones, I will definitely tell you the 7 Plus, for it being, 6 years old as of this point, it's understandable about, how old it feels and everything. But the 14 Pro Max definitely feels like a much more premium phone when it comes down to it. Now, in terms of software and longevity, basically how long this phone's going to last, the iPhone 7 Plus is already kind of unsupported with software. It's not going to be lasting that much longer at all. It's still on iOS 15, so it could potentially get, software support on iOS 15 for maybe another year or so, but it's not going to be getting any cool features within iOS 16, and it's on a pretty limited version of software as of right now. It's not limited, but even on iOS 15, it didn't get all the features on that version of software either. So in terms of that covers it up there. Now let's go and do a speed comparison between both these phones. The iPhone 7 Plus has that Apple A10 Fusion chip inside of it with 3GB of RAM, where the iPhone 14 Pro Max has that Apple A16 Bionic chip inside of it with 6GB of RAM. So let's go see which one's the faster one between both. Okay, there we go. All the apps are cleared out in the background, as you guys can tell, so let's get into it. Let's do phone calls, 3, 2, 1. Yeah, definitely the iPhone 14 Pro Max was faster. Music, 3, 2, 1. And yet again, the iPhone 14 Pro Max I think was faster, but they were on two different panels, so we'll just kind of let this one slide. Let's go into settings, 3, 2, 1. Okay, that was actually much closer than I thought. I wasn't expecting that to be that close. Camera, 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's go and take a photo. Let's go and open up that photo. Okay, so I must have not clicked it on the iPhone 14 Pro Max, but it was still a very fast experience on actually both, which is very surprising. Photos, 3, 2, 1. Okay, I think the iPhone 14 Pro Max again was a faster one. Let's go and get into some of these third-party applications. Now we can try Genshin Impact. 3, 2, 1. This is a very, very big game. And I will tell you, the 7 Plus still handles Genshin Impact fairly well. It's definitely not going to be the fastest experience at all, but you do have graphic profiles you can kind of change in with a lot of these newer, more recent games that have came out. So the 14 Pro Max is going to be giving you a much faster experience, even on this opening speed. I mean, it was definitely a much faster experience on the 14 Pro Max as well. It's going to be less glitchy. It's going to give you better speeds, and it's just going to be a way better performing phone when it comes down to it. Hopping out of this one, let's go and do Twitter. 3, 2, 1. Again, iPhone 7 Plus a little bit behind. Hopping out of here, let's go and get into something like Snake vs. Blocks. 3, 2, 1. And again, the 14 Pro Max is the faster one. Hopping out of here, let's do Thank You. 3, 2, 1. And again, the 14 Pro Max is faster. 7 Plus a little bit behind. Hopping out of here, let's try Facebook. 3, 2, 1. And again, 14 Pro Max faster. Netflix. 3, 2, 1. Okay, a little bit of a pop-up here, so we'll just go and hop out of this one. Let's go ahead and try Snapchat. 3, 2, 1. 14 Pro Max again is the faster one. 7 Plus a little bit behind. Let's go and end it off with Temple Run 2, 3, 2, 1. And I mean, I'll definitely tell you, if you're going from an iPhone 7 Plus to an iPhone 14 Pro Max, you are going to be getting a much faster phone on the iPhone 14 Pro Max in every single area. Another big thing that some people may forget about is the gesture-based design. Clicking this home button every single time and having to maneuver through with it can give you a much more choppier experience and a slower feeling experience than the gesture-based design on the iPhone 14 Pro Max. So that is one big thing to keep in mind. If you're scrolling through and you're going through your whole entire UI, you're going to be getting a faster, more smoother experience on the iPhone 14 Pro Max than on the iPhone 7 Plus. So definitely keep that in mind at the end of the day. Now, in terms of the cameras, this is another big difference, humongous different area between both. The iPhone 7 Plus dual camera setup, wide and telephoto lens, the first iPhone camera to bring a dual camera setup. With the iPhone 14 Pro Max, we have a wide, ultra-wide, and telephoto lens on the back. The iPhone 14 Pro Max can do 4K at 60 on the front and the back. The 7 Plus can only do 4K at 30 on the back, and it can do like 720p or 1080p on the front, but it's really not that great of a camera on the 7 Plus anymore. This was the first iPhone to originate portrait mode, which is really cool. So I'm really happy this phone ended up having that. You do have things like that telephoto lens too, which was the first iPhone to bring that with 10x zoom. But other than that, I mean, it's a fairly limited experience on this type of camera. You have portrait mode, which is nice. You have standard video mode, which is cool too. But beyond that, you don't really have a crazy amount of features built within this camera, which, for better or for worse, it's just the truth. It's just what we kind of have to deal with. I don't think it's a crazy big deal, but it is one of those things to keep in mind. The 7 Plus camera, I think it was good at one point. I used this phone as a main device for a period of time. But the 14 Pro Max, I mean, if you're going from the iPhone 7 Plus to a 14 Pro Max, this is where you're going to be getting some of the biggest differences for sure. This is a very solid camera with a ton amount of features built within. You have that 0.5x ultra-wide camera, which is nice. You have 15x zoom, so you have even more zoom than the iPhone 7 Plus. You have portrait mode, which has been enhanced like crazy now, but you also have 4K at 60 on the front and the back. You have this new action mode, which is really cool too, which basically just stabilizes the videos out a little bit more, which is really awesome. You also have cinematic mode, which is like portrait mode for video. So that is another big thing that, these new iPhones ended up bringing too. So when it comes down to it, the 14 Pro Max is a way better camera, and even beyond that, the 14 Pro Max is definitely the better phone when it comes down to it. You are going to be getting a much better phone from something like the iPhone 14 Pro Max than the iPhone 7 Plus, and in fact, I would say this is a solid upgrade. This is like the most perfect upgrade you can make, but I will also say you don't have to only go from a 7 Plus to a 14 Pro Max. You can go from an iPhone 7 Plus to like an iPhone 13 Pro Max and still get a really big upgrade as well. So that's kind of how both these iPhones compare. You're going to be getting better battery life, better performance, better cameras, better everything on the 14 Pro Max. The 7 Plus is a cheaper phone, so that's really the main advantage here, but that's kind of how both these phones compare. If you have any other thoughts or questions, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.